Hey, Chris Seiter here, founder of Ex-Boyfriend Recovery, and today we're going to be talking about how to get your guy back. Now, the first thing you probably are wondering if you're trying to get your ex back is, do I even have a chance of getting my ex back? Well, if that's you, I have great news for you. I've actually put together a special quiz on my website, www.exboyfriendrecovery.com, designed to answer this exact question. So all you have to do if you're interested in taking that quiz and finding out what kind of chance you have of getting your ex back is simply look in the description link below. Look for the link there, click on it. There should be some language saying take the 2-minute free quiz. Once you click on that, it's going to take you to a page that asks you a lot of questions about your relationship with your ex, what you're like, what your ex is like, and then based on the answers that you give, we're going to run it through an advanced algorithm and give you an idea of what kind of chances you have of getting your ex back. So again, if you're interested in taking that quiz, all you have to do is simply look in the description below. Let's begin.
All right, this is going to be one of those landmark videos, those ones that I rarely do, but something that is an all-encompassing type of a strategy video. And that's what we're going to be talking about today as we really go through how to get your guy back. And more than anything, this is just how to get someone back in general. Updated for 2019 or whatever have you. This is the most up-to-date information. Now, I do want to say this isn't going to be one of those flashy type videos if you're in for that, but the information that I cover here is going to be of the utmost importance, and that's not me just kidding around. This is me actually being serious. So if you stick it out to the end, this should only take about 10-15 minutes. I can actually explain the entire strategy that we're finding works best to get someone back right here, right now. All right, so I want you to pay attention to this. This is actually what I call the value chain, but I've actually updated it based on new information and new strategies that we're seeing working. So the idea of the value chain is that slowly but surely, as you go through the process of getting your ex back, you're moving up and you're building value through each step. Almost think of it kind of like a video game and you're advancing to the next level. The next level becomes a little bit more difficult, but the rewards you reap are greater. Same principle applies here. As you move through the value chain, as you move through the no contact rule, texting, phone calls, dating, the ask, whatever these things are, which I'm going to explain to you in just a moment, each time you sort of conquer the level and you're allowed to move to the next one, you are going to gain benefits, and most of the benefits are going to be your ex opening up to you even more. Right, so let's go through this. Let's talk through each step of this strategy. The first step is pretty self-explanatory. It is the no contact rule. And oftentimes when new people come to me and they're asking me about the no contact rule, I explain it to them like this. There's no magic bullet when it comes to getting someone back. There just isn't. Whatever people have you believe out there, I've been doing this for 6.5 years. There's no magic bullet. Rather, it's accumulation of different tactics working in tandem together that's going to get you the results that you're seeking. Now, if you think of it that way, think of it kind of like a puzzle, right? Each tactic needs to fit together perfectly, and if all of the tactics fit together perfectly and you have them in the right order and they're in the right timing and everything, it's going to create a puzzle. The puzzle piece or the picture will be completed for the puzzle. But if there was ever one tactic that you could sort of put down and it was a big tactic, like a big puzzle piece that maybe took up half the picture, it would be the no contact rule. Now, if you don't know, the no contact rule is pretty straightforward. It's just basically a period of time where you ignore your ex, usually anywhere from 21 to 45 days. The intent there trying to make them miss you, but also giving you some time to kind of reset your life a little bit. We found that the no contact rule is actually present within most of our success stories. In fact, on our private Facebook group, 100% of our success stories have admitted to using some form of the no contact rule or trying it out in some way, shape, or form. So one thing that we know for a fact is that it's very present in our success stories, which means it's an important strategy to understand. Now, most of you guys know what the no contact rule is. I don't really need to go deep into it. Where things get interesting is actually when we start moving into the texting and phone call stages, right? And I'm not going to sit here and tell you what text messages to use. That's just going to be a waste of my time and a waste of your time. Instead, I want you to understand the overall strategy that we're talking about, right? The overall strategy is basically getting from point A to point B, where you are now, to getting back with your ex. But within that strategy, there are different tactics to try out. The no contact rule is a tactic. It's a small portion of the overall strategy. Texting and phone calls are the next two tactics you want to employ. And when I say texting and phone calls, I don't think that's perhaps the best way of describing them. What I'm talking about here is that you're going to use text messages, phone calls, Facebook, Skype, Instagram, Snapchat, any kind of social media, any kind of vehicle of conversation to actually build attraction up, right? That's what you're using it for, right? So you're using texting, phone calls, maybe Facebook, maybe Instagram, maybe Snapchat to build and rebuild that reattraction. Now, things kind of get interesting when you actually consider dating, right? Dating is also a vehicle for conversation, right? You've got text messaging, phone calls, and I would even throw dating in there as well. Each of these is a way that you can communicate with your ex and rebuild that attraction, right? Now, the reason I have it structured this way is because you don't just go from the no contact rule to dating. Oftentimes, you need to kind of take baby steps to earn a date, if you will. Now, what do I mean by earn a date? Well, the reason I have text messaging placed explicitly after the no contact rule is because text messaging is very light and it's very non-confrontational. You get some time to think about what you want to say. Your ex even gets some time to look at your text messages and sort of think about what they're going to say. And it's also a great way of sort of reestablishing that trust. Now, speaking of trust, throughout all of this process, from the moment you get out of the no contact rule, your entire job is to build trust. That's it. That's your entire job, right? You do that through the conversations that you have with your ex, right? So I've talked a lot about recently the ability of kind of moving up this value chain when it comes to your conversations as well. So generally speaking, you're going to have different conversations with strangers that you're going to have with lovers or friends or family. Well, what separates those two? Well, in my mind, it's trust. You trust your family, you trust your lover, you trust your friends more than you're going to trust a stranger. But how do you turn a stranger into a friend? How do you turn a friend into a lover? How do you turn a lover into a husband or wife or what have you? Well, a lot of it's going to have to do with the conversations that you hold together, the trust built. And what I've found is that generally speaking, this is how it works. With a stranger, you're going to basically have small talk with them. If you feel a connection through small talk, you're going to actually start sharing stories with them. After you start sharing stories, if you feel connection there and there kind of some type of reciprocation, the two of you will start sharing opinions. After you start sharing opinions, you maybe have built up enough trust together where they're willing to trust you with something that they've never told anyone before. This is what I call virgin ground, as the ultimate sign that it's time to start sharing your feelings. Now, what do I mean? How will you know if they've never told anyone something before? Well, oftentimes they'll tell you something. Your ex will sit there and tell you something and then follow it up by saying, I've never told anyone that before. This is an indication that it's actually time to start sharing feelings. Now, that is sort of how you need to be having conversations with your ex. A lot of people make this misconception. They think and are arrogant enough to believe that because they dated this person that they're trying to get back, that puts them in some other level. But what they forget is that you're broken up and those levels don't apply to you anymore. You have to start over from scratch just like most people. And the biggest mistake I see people making is doing the no contact rule, getting through the no contact rule brilliantly, and then jumping right to sharing feelings. Well, no, you can't do that. You have to work your way up. So everything, as you can see, is very structured in a way that we're slowly but surely building the trust, rebuilding the attraction and everything. Now, dating is kind of interesting because dating, in my opinion, is where you actually start trying to prime for that virgin ground. Start trying to look for sharing feelings, right? Probably the best example of this I can give you is the movie 500 Days of Summer. Right. This is a brilliant movie, and it has a lot of really interesting insights and things to say about relationships in the modern age. Specifically, it follows a spoiler alert. It follows a guy, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who has just gone through a breakup, right? And he's remembering his experience with Summer, right? He's remembering the 500 days he had with Summer, and there's a scene in there where you could tell she likes him, but she's not willing to commit to him. There's just not enough there, but she ends up telling him something and literally says, I've never told anyone that before. And this, he has this internal monologue when this happens, and he kind of expresses this idea that he's entered into a realm with this girl that he's never entered into, or that she's never entered into with anyone else in her life. It's this ultimate sign of trust. And oftentimes, I found through my own experience dating and through many others' experiences dating, when this happens, it's time to start sharing feelings. But it hardly ever happens over the phone. Most of the time it's going to happen when you're in person with the person you're trying to get back, or in person with the person you're trying to woo, right? When you're on a date, if they look at you and say, I've actually never told anyone that before. Or sometimes I can start the statement with, I've never told anyone this before, but, and then, tell you what they're going to tell. After that happens, you've reached the level where they're probably going to be positive when you actually start saying, I've really missed you, or something like that. They'll reciprocate in a positive way. Now, that leads me to the final part of what I want to talk about today, and that's the ask. Now, what do I mean by the ask? Well, the ask is simply when you and your ex are looking to reconnect. You're looking to enter into an agreement that you should get back into a relationship. And a lot of people make a big deal about this ask. They ask me questions about how they should have it, or if they should be the ones to actually sort of initiate it, or should they just wait for their ex to be the one to initiate it? And I've thought a lot about it over the years, and I've certainly come up with some very effective strategies for having this conversation if indeed you do need to have it with your ex. But the more I thought about it, and the more I actually ran through a lot of people's strategies, this should be the actual easiest part if all of this strategy is done properly. This should come seamlessly. This should come naturally. You shouldn't have to try, and most of the time you won't. If you put yourself in a position, won't have to do anything. They will initiate this conversation themselves. Oftentimes you'll get people who have reached the dating phase, but they're not getting the ask. Their ex isn't willing to take that commitment step. And they ask me, well, why? Why won't he do that? Why won't she do that? And my answer is pretty simple. It means they went too fast. They skipped over something, or they didn't build up enough credibility or confidence or incentive for them to have that conversation. Now, sure, sometimes you do everything brilliantly, you do everything perfectly, and you need to push this conversation through. You need to be the one to have it. But more often than not, if you follow the strategy I have outlined here, you won't need to worry about having this conversation. It will happen naturally, whether it's you that brings it up or him or her that brings it up. And that actually ends the strategy that we teach. Now, you probably have a lot of questions about how this works, and I went like lightning fast through this thing. Think of it this way. Each part, each little building block you see here, no contact, texting, phone calls, dating, the ask, each little building block here has hundreds of steps to accomplish it. Again, the best example I can give you is think of the video game Mario. Think of the levels you have to go through, all of the things you have to jump over, all of the enemies in your place, all of the cliffs you have to jump over. It's like that for every building block. There are hundreds of things for you to do this properly. I went through this strategy as fast as possible because guess what? No one has the patience to sit here and listen to me ramble on about the no contact rule for 3 hours. And make no mistake about it, I could probably spend 3 hours talking about the no contact rule, 3 hours talking about texting, 3 hours talking about Facebook, 3 hours talking about phone calls, 3 hours talking about Snapchat, 3 hours talking about dating, 4 or 5 hours talking about the intricacies of the ask, and that's for a general situation. This strategy isn't distilled down to work in tandem for someone whose ex is dating someone else or someone who is in a long-distance relationship. This is the general strategy that everything is built upon, but alterations need to be made based on your situation. Now, you're probably sitting there and wondering, well, where? Where can I go to find something that matches for my situation perfectly? Well, quite frankly, the best place to start is actually on our website and by taking our quiz, because that will give us an idea of what your situation is, and we can actually point you in the direction of the proper steps that you need to be taking. But more than anything, I'm going to be honest and level with you. There's really nothing out there that can match your situation perfectly except one-on-one coaching. That's what I've learned the hard way. Now, I'm not sitting here and pitching my coaching. We do coaching on my website. I think there's a link in the description below, and I'm not going to sit here and pitch the coaching to you because honestly, I want to earn your business based on merit. But I'm just letting you know, if you want that sort of strategy for your exact situation, there's no article I can write that will do it perfectly. The only thing is one-on-one coaching. That's the only thing that can give you that level of detail. All right, so that is the strategy in a nutshell. That's how to get someone back. That's what we're teaching now. And like I said, each one of these building blocks has hundreds of things to properly accomplish. So, with that in mind, I'll see you guys next time.